Hello, lovers of Black true crime. Let me welcome you to the Noir Nation. If I asked you to name me three Black serial killers, could you do it? What about a Black person that's pulled off a heist of epic proportions? Don't worry, I couldn't either. But being a lover of true crime and all things Black, I decided to combine these two passions into a true crime podcast exploring some of the most intriguing and lesser known criminal masterminds with a melanated leading cast. Each week, I will bring you the stories of some of the most prolific criminals you've never heard of. I'm your host, Renee Davis, and this is the Melanin Mayhem Podcast. Well, hello, Noir Nation. Welcome back. And if it's your first time joining us, welcome to Melanin Mayhem with your girl, Renee Davis. Today, guys, is a very special day because this is episode number 10. We celebrate the big milestones as well as the small ones, y'all. I am proud to have put out 10 episodes of content for your listening pleasure, and I'm going to keep them coming for you. I have so many people to tell you about. We haven't even scratched the surface of the thousands of melanated mayhem makers that did some prolific criminalistic shit. So for episode number 10, this being a milestone reaching double digits and all, I have a really good story to tell you about a man that set it off both in the crimes he committed and the amount of time he received. Honey, woo. This guy was a menace in a state that has never been known for being lenient on criminals, especially black ones. He was committing crimes like Audacity was on sale, buy one, get two free. If never see the light of day was a person, it would be this week's Melanin Mayhem maker, Mr. Mark Goudeau. Born September 6, 1964, the 13th of 14 children, or the almost baby, as I like to call it. His mother died when he was 10, and he was raised by his 18-year-old sister, Linda Goudeau. Because remember, Mark has 13 other siblings, right? And she stayed in Tempe, Arizona, instead of him staying with his dad in Phoenix, Arizona, because they felt like Tempe had better schools, and they wanted Mark to get away from any gang influences. I am not sure if that worked because according to the streets, Mark and one of his brothers, they played sports in high school. You know, athletes are popular with the ladies, right? Well, one day, a girl comes over to the house with Mark and his brother. When the girl leaves the house, she goes to the police and reports a rape. An investigation of some type was done. And mind you, this would have been circa 1980-ish to 1983-ish, because if he was in high school when this happened, he would have had to have been between 15 and 18, right? Rape investigations in the 80s, I am going to say, were less productive at the time. So I can only imagine what that young lady went through. Whatever it was that she went through, it was enough to make her withdraw her complaint and move out of the state. Mark didn't fare too well after this either because small town talk made it hard for Mark to keep going to school. You know, being known as a rapist can have a negative effect. So Mark just dropped out of school. Straight into the workforce, Mark goes. He's working as a driver, did a little bit of car detailing, and then he finally settled in on working in the construction area. That's a hard knock life, y'all. And what do some people do when life starts lifing? They self-medicate. Mark's medication of choice? Alcohol, cocaine, and crack. They say coke is expensive, so I don't think he was on that powder. I think he was on that base. Classic. Nino Brown. Come on now. So we know Mark is smoking crack, and he starts to do crackhead shit. There was this time where he assaulted this woman in broad daylight. See, what had happened was Mark was at his place with a little shouty, right? And according to her, they were vibing and whatnot. And then Mark pulls out some powder and he takes a little hit. And he offer it to her. And she's like, thank you, but no thank you. And she says that Mark flips the fuck out on her. He starts manhandling her and sexually assaulting her and trying to rape her. And then this motherfucker starts beating her with a dumbbell. Yes, you heard me right. I said a dumbbell. Some kind of way this woman makes it out of the house. And you think Mark is through? Oh, no, no, no. Not this audacious nigga. He starts chasing her down the street with a shotgun in the middle of the street in broad daylight. That is some aggressive crackhead behavior. Then, a year later in 1990, he decides that he is going to rob a store. No mask. He drove his own car. There were witnesses galore. Right? Like, we see you. He gets in his car and drives away. The cops pull up to his door a little while later to arrest that ass because, sir, they got your tag number, stupid. Anywho, we already know who you are because, we arrested you last year for beating a woman with that dumbbell. And when they arrested him, they find a paper bag with $500 in it. The same amount that was stolen from that store that was just robbed. So he faced a jury for the assault charge on the woman and then at the same time for the robbery a year later. Now he gets 15 years for beating the woman and 21 years for stealing $500. Let me say that again. For beating that woman with a dumbbell and chasing her with a shotgun, trying to end her life, he got 15 years. Which one of these crimes was the most invasive? I say it, I feel like almost every podcast. Men always get a pass when they use their dicks for assault. He beat this woman with a dumbbell and got more time for a crime where he ain't even pinch a bitch. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, anywho, he goes to prison, and like many a criminal before him, he finds Jesus, or so he says. Fresh, clean, and full of the Holy Spirit, Mark is ready to get back on these streets. This time with a new attitude and a wife. Yes, indeed. Oh, Marky Mark got a missus. His wife, of the Caucasian persuasion, her name is Wendy Carr. She married him while he was serving time in prison for robbery and assaulting that woman. Yeah, sis went out and found her one of the best available on the market, right? And Wendy stood by her man when the shit hit the fan. You better believe it. So, anywho, back to Mark. He goes up for parole in 2004, and he tells the parole board when they asked him why he committed those crimes, he says, it was all because of the crack. That wasn't me. That was the crack. But I'm a changed man now, and I'm walking with the Lord. And if you let me out, I promise I'll be good. They believe that shit because he walks out of prison a free man in 2004 after having served 13 years. And on the surface, it looks like Mark has been rehabilitated. He gets a job. Wendy got a home for him to play house in, and he's taking pride in keeping his yard looking good and telling the neighbors, y'all be blessed every time they walk past. But is this all just a facade? Is Mark leading a double life? According to the police, the answer is a big fat yes. Noor Nation, in 2005 and 2006, Phoenix was hit with a big ass crime wave. I'm talking about crimes coming from all over the place, and they just could not get a handle on it. It was so many crimes that the police thought that they had multiple serial criminals committing some real fucked up shit at the same damn time. In one instance, they had someone who was just randomly shooting people. But then in this other case, they had a light skinned black man that was assaulting women and girls at gunpoint, all happening in a specific area around the Baseline Road. So they nicknamed this menace the Baseline Rapist. But then when he started killing people, they upgraded his nickname from the Baseline Rapist to the Baseline Killer in the spring of 2006. Now, this nigga didn't have no rhyme or reason to his crimes. Anybody could get it. Young, old, adult, child, he was brutal. And if they didn't comply, he would finish their asses off with a bullet to the dome. He spread his particularly vicious brand of love all over the Baseline area. But even as I researched this, It felt like it had an air of, what's the word I want to use? Crackheadedness. Yeah, that's the word, crackheadedness. It means it feels like something a goddamn crackhead would do. There is an audaciousness to these crimes that just have a cracky type of hint to it. You don't know, a crackhead, they'll do some shit a regular person not on crack won't do. But this baseline killer dude, he was slick with it. They say he was using all kinds of disguises while he was out here making mayhem. They say this dude wore a mask and he even acted like he was homeless or a drug addict. Cause I told y'all we don't pay no attention to the homeless people. We see them and don't see them. That drug addict on the corner, we see him and don't see him. So they're saying that this dude was acting like that was what he was. People weren't noticing him. Now they're trying to say Mark was this dude, so he's doing all of this stuff I'm about to tell you about while he's out on parole. But the thing is, at the time, the cops didn't really have any concrete suspects for these crimes. It was like they were chasing a ghost. All the usual means of investigation weren't turning up any evidence. I mean, they were making lists and checking them twice. Only problem was Mark's name wasn't on anybody's list. And normally, guys, I go chronologically and list all of the crimes that the mayhem maker has committed, and I am still going to list out all of the crimes that the Phoenix police said happened at this time. However, I need to let you know there was not a lot of detailed information on a lot of these assaults, so I can't give you that deep dive into the details like I normally do. I got enough to wet your whistle, and then I got a couple of deeper details on some of them. It's important that I list them so that you can see the frequency of these crimes that were happening. So let's go through all the shit that was popping off that's being attributed to the baseline killer. So we are going to start August 6, 2005. A man walks up on a group of teenagers. He pulls a gun out on them. He forces them to go behind a church where he rapes two females in the group. And while he is raping these two young girls, he is making the others in the group watch him rape them while he's got a gun pulled on them. When he is done, he calmly gets up, wipes himself off, and disappears into the night. Oh, child. Week later, August 14th, there's a sexual assault and a robbery. A month later, on September 8th, Georgia Thompson, a 19-year-old exotic dancer, stripper, if you don't know what an exotic dancer is, she was shot in her head in her car at her apartment complex. She is found with her pants down, but police say they weren't sure if she was raped or not. They do know she was dead. Few days later, on September 15th, another sexual assault. 5 days later, on September 20th, 2005, this assailant attacked two sisters. They're 21 and 23 years old. They're walking home from a park late at night. Well, not even late at night. It's nighttime. The moon is out. The street lights are on. They're doing what young 20s do, right? They're sisters. Been at the park having fun. The older sister, the one that's 23, she's pregnant. They're walking and suddenly a man jumps out of the bushes with a gun in his hand. He forces them into some more bushes and tells them to remove their clothes. Oh my Lord Jesus. The sister said that the man took turns just repeatedly raping the younger sister because the older sister was holding her belly saying, "Oh my Lord, don't hurt my baby." So he's holding the gun on her, pointing it at her stomach, in between her legs, while he's raping her younger sister. Now, while he's doing this, he's telling them not to look at him. They say that he's got on a hat pulled down low over his face. And then when he was done, let me tell you what this motherfucker did. They said that when he got through, he got some dirt off the ground, told the older sister, the pregnant one, told her to spit in his hand, and then he rubbed that spitty dirt all over the younger sister who he had just got through raping. He was trying to degrade any trace of his saliva that was on her. He also wore a condom while he was raping her. Now, initially, right after the crime happened, the sisters could not identify the man that attacked them. They looked at all sorts of mugshots, including Mark. I found that interesting. I mean, this was not a quick attack. Like, he spent at least a half an hour or more with these women. And I know I mean, they don't have any type of recollection of this man, the eye color, the shape of his nose, how he talked, if he had any identifying marks or tattoos. What about how his hair was cut? Nothing. This crime would only be pinned on Mark later when DNA was tested and linked to him. Now, while the crime against the two sisters was bad, it was just the tip of the iceberg. He would go on to cause so much mayhem and bring so much terror to the Phoenix area and put pressure on the police to make an arrest in the baseline killer investigation. But let's keep on going with these crimes that was happening in the meantime, in between time. Now, on September 28th, 2005, he robbed a mother and her young daughter in front of a Mexican restaurant, snatched them up, took them off, and raped them. Skipped a little bit, and then in November, he's back at it. November 3rd, a man with dreadlocks, mind you, dreadlocks and a fisherman's hat, walks into a store and robs them at gunpoint for $720. Less than 10 minutes later, a woman is in a parking lot putting some donations in one of those donation bins, like Red Cross or something like that. This woman is abducted and sexually assaulted in her car. The man who did this to her demanded that she drive him around and drop him off on a corner because he had just got through doing a robbery. Now, this victim said that the man who did all this to her wore a Halloween costume and had on some black plastic glasses. What the fuck? Not 4 days later, three separate robberies, all on November 7th. Started off at this Mexican restaurant called La Brasas. He goes inside La Brasas, robs the people inside there at gunpoint. Then he walks next door to the Little Caesars Pizza, robs three people in there. And when he comes out of Little Caesars, four people outside on the street. He pulled down on them too and stole $463 from them. And then just to, put a period on the end of the sentence as he's running away, he fires a round into the air. My Lord. December 12th, 2005. A woman named Tina Washington, 39 years old, was on her way home from a preschool where she worked, and a witness said he saw a man standing over a woman's body behind a fast food restaurant. When the police get there, they see Tina. She's been shot in her head, dead. The next day, December 13th, a woman was robbed. My word. Now, he took a little bit of a break and then cranked back up until February 20th, where he hit the city with two murders. 38-year-old Romelia Vargas and 34-year-old Myrna Palmer Roman, they were found shot to death inside of a food truck. Now, initially, police didn't connect this crime to the baseline killer. They just thought that this was just some old regular run-of-the-mill drug-related murder cases, right? But it would be later on the following year when the police linked this murder also was committed by the baseline killer. That following month in March, two more people catch a bullet. Liliana Sanchez Cabrera, 20 years old, they found her dead in the parking lot of another fast food restaurant, while the body of the cook for the restaurant that she ran, man named Chow Chow, they found his body about a mile away. Both victims shot in the head. I guess Chow Chow tried to run, and dude ran behind him and caught up with him and gave him a bullet for his problems. I don't know. Still in March 29th, man comes to work, opens up his store, and while he's opening up his business, he see that there's some streaks of blood on the gravel in the parking lot. Supposed to be no blood out here, so he calls the police. The police come out, they search the area, but they don't turn up nothing. Businessman goes on about his day. About a week later, still opening up his store, but he smells something. And he's like, something over here dead. So he calls the police back because he starts walking around and he stumbles upon the body of Kristen Nicole Gibbons. She has been shot in her head. Oh my word. Next month, April 10th, Sophia Nunez is killed. Now I'm going to put a pin in Sophia because I'm going to come back and tell you a little bit about her in a minute. May 1st, somebody is sexually assaulted by a man in a latex Halloween mask. Took this woman and again snatched up from right outside of a restaurant, that same Mexican restaurant. Now at this point, the police are like, we got to do something. So they go to the public and they list out all 18 of these crimes that they think the baseline killer did. Now, all of these crimes again are being committed in and around the Baseline Road area, and there are hundreds of cops on the lookout. But how were they supposed to determine which crimes were just run of the mill, bad luck, wrong time, wrong place kind of crimes, and which of these crimes are serial in nature? They needed to figure out how many assailants were they looking for. And these are all good questions. But at the end of the day, you mean to tell me a crackhead had y'all beat? Like, that's some prolific shit in and of itself. So how did they pin all these charges on Mark? Well, it started with that case from those two sisters and the case of Sophia Nunez. See, with Sophia, Mark liked her. They met at a club, and he had told her that he was a professional ball player that was out of the game because he had got injured. And he was down on his luck a little bit, but he do some handyman work, to make ends meet. So if hey baby, if you got any jobs that you need doing around your house, I'm your man. Well, Sophia wasn't having none of that shit. She could see straight through Mark. They would talk on the phone a little bit and she would, entertain him over the phone. But she told her family that there was something that was off about him and that she thought that he was married. But the more disinterested she was, the more Mark wanted her. Ain't that how it always is? You always want what you can't have. Mark is over here offering to do all kinds of jobs for her, but she wasn't having none of it. But one day, she gave in and she told him that he could fix her doorbell. And if he can fix her doorbell, the doorbell is on the house. That means Mark now has her home address. But she wasn't there. She had him doing this job while she was at work. But again, he has her address. On the day she was killed, neighbors saw a car at her house. She didn't pick her son up from school that day. He's like 7 or 8 years old. His mom didn't pick him up, so he has to walk home from school. When he gets home, he can't get in the door. The front door is locked, but the garage door is cracked. So he crawls under the garage and comes on in the house. When he gets inside, he hears water running. This little boy goes to investigate and he finds his mama dead in the bathtub. She's been shot in her face. Oh my God. No child should ever have to discover their parent dead. But if you have to discover your parent dead, you at least want it to be of natural causes, not a bullet to the face, like the trauma of it all. Oh well. The police come, and so now they've got a description of the car from the neighbor, and they've got this bullet shell and the bullet from Sophia's body. When they test the bullet, they see that it's a .38 special. Okay. Evidence is slowly coming in. We don't know who, but we do know what kind of gun they like to use. So at this point, all of these crime victims have given time with a sketch artist, so they've got a sketch of a man that they want to question. So at this point, they put this sketch out, right? And they sit back and they wait for the public to do what they do. In the meantime, on June 29, 2006, Carmen Miranda, 37 years old, was out washing her car. She's on the phone with her boyfriend at the time. And the boyfriend and her are just chatting it up. But the boyfriend can hear that someone has walked up to Carmen because apparently, she said something to the effect like, "Ooh, who are you?" Whatever. And then all of a sudden, she just starts screaming and then the line goes dead. So boyfriend, he's quick with it. He calls 911 and tells them that you need to get over here to this car wash. My old lady just dropped the phone. I can't get her to answer. I think something happened. So the police, they run and get over there to the car wash and they start canvassing because at the car wash, Carmen's car is not there. There's no Carmen. They looking, and about 100 yards away behind a barber shop, there's Carmen's body, dead, a gunshot wound to the head. But this time, the killer fucked up. You know you done fucked up, right? This time, the attack was captured on closed circuit television. CCTV, we got your ass now. So they got this video of this man that just killed Carmen, and they immediately released that video to the public to see, does anybody know this man? And indeed, the tips start to flowing. This is going to be the last crime that's attributed to the baseline killer. Because again, now your face, possibly in this sketch, is plastered. We now have a live video showing you in action. Well, it's July of 2006 now. And y'all remember that woman that was beat with that dumbbell and chased down the street with that shotgun? Well, Madame is sitting at home watching TV, and then all of a sudden she sees this video and she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I know that nigga. That's Mark. And she wastes no time running to the police. And she's like, look, y'all, this ain't no episode of Maury. I am 1000% sure that that's that nigga. As much hell as he put me through, I will never forget his face. I will never forget his body. I will never forget his stature, how he walks, his gait. I know that that man on that video is Mark Goudeau. Now, on paper, Mark is like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at this point because at home, he's a loving husband that brings his wife flowers every week and a good neighbor, keeps his lawn looking pretty, always speaks and has a kind word. But here is this woman saying that he's a monster, that he always has been a monster, always will be a monster. And the police, they were skeptical at first, but shit, what else did they have to lose? They'd been chasing their own tails for 2 years, so they looked into it. Now, here is where I call bullshit. Mark had his DNA swabbed when he was released from prison in 2004. When the two sisters were attacked in 2005, why wasn't the DNA run? I don't know. But now that they have Mark's name and a few of these crimes do have DNA evidence, they figured now is the time to run Mark's DNA against what they had. And guess what? It was an exact fucking match. It's 2006 now, almost 2007. You've had the ability to solve these crimes for 2 fucking years. That is incompetence at its finest. It's also, like I always say, we are discounted. These are just some random crimes happening to some random people of color. It'd be all right. It'd be all right. Now, on September 2006, it's Mark's 42nd birthday. And your boy done went to work and he got some pep in his step because he knows when he gets off work tonight, when he gets home, his wifey is taking him out to dinner for his born day. Instead, Mark is arrested outside his house. Happy birthday, nigga! We bought you some bracelets and we got a nice room all booked and ready to go for you. And they frog marched his ass to the Maricopa County Jail right in front of Wendy and the whole damn neighborhood. Now, speaking of Maricopa County jails, from my understanding, you'd rather go to jail anywhere in the world other than Maricopa County. Now, I am not a jail connoisseur myself, so I cannot speak from experience or nothing like that. But what I've read about Maricopa County before I started doing true crime, and everything I read and everything I saw on the news was all bad. Like, Fulton County Jail is bad. Maricopa County, they are chain gang bad. Like, Maricopa County had tent cities where they put inmates in tent outside in the sun, the Arizona sun, where it gets hot as the hinges of hell in a motherfucking tent. No AC, just a tent full of hot, sweaty motherfuckers in the sun, baking in the desert. No, thank you, Maricopa County. I have a healthy desire not to go to jail, but if I did, I'll take my chances of not dying on Rice Street. That's our jail in Fulton County, if you don't know that. Over here in the ATL, we call it Rice Street because that's the street it's on. Anywho, Mark was indicted on September 14th, and his trial was slated to start the following year in July 2007. Now, I need you to know that Mark had two separate trials. The first trial was for the rape involving those sisters in the park, and then he had a second trial for the Baseline Road murders, killings, assaults, all of that shit rolled up in one. So, for that first trial, he was charged with 19 crimes, again, only related to the two sisters' assault. That trial started on July 16th of 2007. It took them a week to pick the jury, followed by 6.5 weeks of trial. And then that old funky ass jury took 3 hours to deliberate before finding that ass guilty on all 19 charges, which included counts for sexual assault, sexual abuse, kidnapping, aggravated assault. They found him guilty on all 19 of them charges. And he was convicted on September 7th, 2007. Okay? Well, December 14th of that same year, he got his sentencing. Baby, they gave that ass 438 years for his crime. Let me say that again because some of y'all didn't hear me. I did not say 438 days. I did not say 438 months. Baby, I said 438 years. That would put this nigga getting out of prison in the year of 2445. Okay, so we ain't through with your ass yet, Mark, because he was indicted for the second time on January 16th of 2007, and this time it was for 74 felony offenses. They charged Mark with 74 motherfucking crimes. These crimes involve 33 victims in 13 separate attacks around the Baseline Road area of Phoenix. So, in that second trial, he had 9 counts of first degree murder, 1 count of attempted first degree murder, 15 counts of sexual assault, 6 counts of attempted sexual assault, 11 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of attempted kidnapping, 12 counts of armed robbery, 4 counts of attempted armed robbery, 4 counts of sexual abuse, 9 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of molestation of a child, and 1 count of burglary. Woo, child, that was a lot. I mean, goddamn, they everything but the kitchen sink they throwed at his ass. That jury deliberated for a little bit longer. They took 7 days before they came back with a verdict. And on October 31st, Halloween, baby, 2011, they convicted him of 67 of the 74 charges. When I tell you they didn't just throw the book at him, they threw all the books ever printed and ever thought about at his ass. Again, October 31st, they sentenced him to 9 death sentences for the 9 murders he was convicted of. And then they gave him 1,196 years for those other 67 felonies that he was convicted on. Let me say that again. 9 death sentences and 1,196 years. Altogether, this nigga got a total sentence between the 2 trials of 1,634 years plus 9 death sentences. I mean, even if Mark was a cat and had 9 lives to give, when Lazarus rose from that 9th death, he would still have 1,634 years to do. Like, goddamn! Without the death sentences, Mark would have a release date of the year 3658. Y'all, we only in 2024. Like, how the court say fuck you with a big fat dick and no Vaseline without saying it? Give a nigga 1,634 years. I'm sorry, y'all, but we would have had some major furniture moving up in this piece. I mean, you got to. What else can you do? This is literally your very last chance to cause some mayhem on the outside. Baby, I'm going for the judge. Y'all gonna have to tase my ass. Somebody gonna have to pull out their pepper spray because y'all gonna earn y'all checks today. You can't just roll back up to the prison after getting 9 death sentences and 1,000 years and be all meek and quiet. Again, I told y'all God was still working on me. I'm a work in progress. Luckily, there is no chance, not a snowball's, what is it, a snowball in hell? And a snowball in hell's chance that I'm going in front of a judge. Definitely, if I do happen to go in front of a judge, it's gonna be for some lightweight shit. Ain't no way in the hell I'm gonna get 1,600 years. Just ain't gonna happen. But again, 1,634 years is what this nigga gotta do. And let me circle back to old Wendy. The missus, old Wendy stood by her man when that shit hit the fan, y'all. Wendy was out there talking about, y'all got the wrong one. Fuck that DNA. DNA ain't nothing but and spelled backwards. Mark family and Wendy, they were out here loud and proudly proclaiming Mark's innocence. Now, Wendy, she's been married to this man for 20 years, although some of that time was behind bars, but we ain't even gonna go there with Wendy. They lived in the area where all of the crimes were happening. She said that they even talked about the Baseline killer. They saw it on the news. She said that her husband Mark was scared for her and did not allow her to go out after dark. Because he didn't want you to run across him while he was out doing one of his walks while he was assaulting women. Mark's sister, Linda, the one who took care of him when he was young and after his mama died, Linda paints a picture of Mark as the person that goes to the schools and tells the kids to just say no to drugs and stay away from the crime. He was a man of morals and principles and he hated drugs. I know. I know. I just said last week it's okay to support your people. But I also said to support your people SSS style. Strong, silent support. This wasn't SSS. And sis, just a few facts that contradict this picture that you so desperately trying to paint of your criminal brother. 1. He beat a bitch with a barbell and a shotgun in 1989 and was convicted of aggravated assault. He did time behind that shit, remember? 2. He was arrested and convicted of armed robbery of a store a year later while he was out on bond. And when they asked him why he did it, he told his probation officer that he needed money for crack. Sis, he can't be out here doing crackhead shit and copping to the crackhead shit. And then you try to rewrite history when his ass get caught up in some next level criminalistic behavior. Also, an unintended consequence of that loud and proud method is having to deal with the craziness of other humans that think that you a fucked up individual for caring about said criminal. Take the wife Wendy after proclaiming to the hills about her husband's innocence and that he was being framed by the Phoenix Police Department. Y'all want to guess what happened to her? Well, according to Wendy, she said she wished that she could just run away from it all because in the year that followed her husband's arrest, her house was searched 4 times. She lost all her money to the lawyers trying to keep this nigga out of jail. Somebody shot up her house, and because she couldn't stay away from the media, always in front of somebody with a camera and a microphone, her face was plastered all over the news reports. So everywhere she went, people were on her ass. Serve that ass right. She became a prisoner in her own damn home. Again, loud and proud, that's the shit you get. I preach the SSS method. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, I have a couple of issues with this case. Just a few that have me befuddled a little bit, if you will. Like, Mark was charged with a lot of crimes. Like, that's a lot. And there is a part of me that believes everything that has DNA attached to it. Full stop. With me, I'm like 50 Cent on that shit. He did that shit. Come on, Power. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But I am also kind of wondering if there may be just a little hint of, all black folks look alike going on here as well. I mean, that's a lot of crimes that he is charged with. And eyewitness testimony is suspect on a good day, much less after somebody done had a gun in your face, sexually assaulted you, robbed you, beat you. I mean, trauma. And your eyewitness testimony might not be as credible because you were on a fight or flight type of time, But again, could there be a possibility that Mark did do some bad shit? But did he do all the shit that they said he did? Or was he used as a fall guy for them open cases to get them closed? Now, I'm telling you, them sisters, his DNA was found on them. And even though they couldn't identify him, which I thought was weird, but again, I know trauma affects everybody differently, but he did spend a fair amount of time with him and they didn't notice any identifying marks on Mark. And even though they couldn't, DNA said, you did that shit, so you did that shit. But all of those robberies and assaults that he did with disguises on, like his wife Wendy didn't see any props, randomly cleaning out a closet and here's some Halloween masks. It ain't Halloween. We don't even celebrate. When the cops were doing those searches of his house and car, they didn't find no dreadlock wig. Because remember, somebody was out here with dreadlocks. If they didn't find a dreadlock wig, could it be that there really was a dude with dreads that was out there assaulting people? With the exception of the Sophia Nunez and the 2 sisters rape case, none of the other crimes that they pinned on him had any DNA. It was the similarity of the crimes, the MO of the crimes. That's what they used to convict him. So you mean to tell me he was sloppy as hell with these 2 cases, and he was also at the same time meticulous and deceptive for the other 21? He was a crackhead. Yes, he was a functioning crackhead, but his MO to me seems to be aggressive and loud and emotional. Like chasing a woman down the street with a shotgun is emotional, not cunning. Raping 2 sisters in the park and leaving DNA is not smart. Shooting Sophia and leaving the bullets and the casing and the fingerprints and DNA is loud and stupid. But he was running around Baseline Road, assaulting left, right, and sideways without being identifiable. He was able to elude the police. And when I say police, quotation marks, police, I mean the 250 officers that were working the case for 4 months. I'm talking about the 8,000 tips that came into the crime hotline. What about the more than 3,500 people that were interviewed in connection with these crimes? Or the more than 1,500 pieces of evidence that were collected? This crackhead didn't pop up in none of that shit? I don't believe it. Because, see, the only reason he wasn't caught in 2006 after assaulting those two sisters is because the cops didn't run the goddamn DNA that they found. It wasn't so much as Mark was a mastermind, it was that they dropped the ball. Mark's DNA was in the system from when he got out of prison. He was easily identifiable. But because of the lack of the police department following any type of standard operating procedure for a rape or an assault with DNA, the police just let it ride. Their ass is basically called an audible. Yeah, we supposed to do this, but we're not going to do it. So if Mark really and truly did commit those other crimes after the sister's assault, all of these people who got caught up in this bullshit, they could have been saved. Their crime wouldn't have happened because Mark would have been off the streets. But for 2 years, the police could not figure it out. Now, I am going to post a picture of the sketch that they had out for the Baseline Killer and a picture of Mark next to it. And I would love for you all to tell me what you think. Because the sketch looks like a generic man in a hat with long hair that I guess is supposed to be dreads, but it's the most generic thing. This could have been a black man, a white man, an Asian man, an Indian man, a Hispanic man. I mean, it's as generic as one could possibly get to be, which goes back to, do we all look alike? I'm just saying. But anywho, you would think that after getting 9 death sentences and 1,634 years in prison, you might think that this is the end of the story for Mark. Because the state got their man, right? The state has moved on. Case closed. They might have, but Mark's criminalistic shenanigans live on, and the bones are still falling out of the closet, honey. In 2017, DNA linked him to a murder that was committed in 1985, a cold case that was unsolved for 32 years. In 85, Mark was only 20 years old. Then, again, through DNA, come to find out, he had a rape. He held a 22-year-old woman at gunpoint, made her drive to a remote spot, and he assaulted her. But even though they know he did it, he wouldn't stand trial for these charges because the statute of limitations had run out. But how many more cold cases are out there that haven't had DNA samples processed that could possibly be attributed to Mark? We know that there are thousands of rape kits and DNA samples sitting on shelves just collecting dust, forever forgotten due to the passage of time. Why isn't there a law on the books that mandates all evidence that's collected is tested? I mean, truly, I really do feel that if DNA is connected, somebody actually took the time to collect this DNA. They took the time to label it. They took the time to store it. Then there should also be someone anywhere that is testing that DNA. It should automatically be run against all the known criminals that are already in the system. Like when we say doing the least, this is the very fucking least. Mark is currently a prisoner on death row in Arizona State Prison Complex. He, of course, has filed several appeals for his death sentences. All of them were denied. Nah, nigga, you gonna get this needle. And that, New Nation, is the story of Mark Goudeau, holder of enough punishment for a whole lot of criminals. A prolific criminal that will absolutely spend the rest of his life in prison until the day he dies, and he better pray that there is no such thing as resurrection because they got his ass when he come back. I told y'all it was a good one today. I hope that you have enjoyed the tale of Mark Goudeau. And if you did, I would love it if you left a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. And you can just hit the 5 stars if you don't feel like typing nothing in. I'm cool with that too. Then I need you to not keep this gem of a podcast to yourself. I need you to be free with it. Share it. Tell all your family about it. Put it in the group chat. If you are on social media, you can find me on Twitter at Melanin Mayhem PC and on Facebook and Instagram at Melanin Mayhem Podcast. And if you know of a melanated mayhem maker that you would like for me to do an episode on, you can drop me a line at melaninmayhempodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, New War Nation, please, please, please stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. It's one love, New War Nation, and I am out.